You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, well, hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Darryl Sanders.
And we are your hosts for this very live show tonight. That's right, we're back at it and we're live. Last night, of course, we had to do a pre-recorded episode, but we're back. And, of course, Ted's already here. He said he's excited for the series. Of course, we're going to be talking about the second trailer for Skeleton Crew. We're going to react to the trailer. Have you watched it yet?
Nope.
Because a lot of times usually when we do these reactions, we've either seen it or whatever, and then we just kind of react for the audience. But yeah, I haven't seen it either. So I guess it's a true reaction. David says, hello, gentlemen. It's Star Wars Day. That's right. It's live Star Wars Day. If you guys did miss it, yesterday we did do a pre-recorded show, but it premiered yesterday. I got to chat with a couple of you guys. That was cool. And we covered basically the new Star Wars trilogy that was announced. So if you missed that, you're going to want to go back and see that. But yeah, if you had to gauge your level of excitement for this series on a scale of 1 to 10, what would it be?
5.
I mean, if
6.
If you had talked to me before the first trailer dropped, I would have said like 1. But I have to admit, after that trailer dropped, I was probably at a solid 7. Okay. Maybe even 8, because it really did make me excited for the series, which, of course, that's what a trailer should do. And if it's doing its job, that's what it will do. But I have to admit that in the world of Star Wars lately, it's amazing because as fans, let's face it, we've been jaded, right? We'll see these really cool trailers, and then we get the show, and then we're like, it's not quite living up to what we actually expected. And of course, Ted's at an 8.5. As he says, he's very excited for this series. So yeah, I mean, I think that this show has potential. Seems to be kind of like a Star Wars meets Stranger Things meets maybe like a Goonies kind of a thing going. Or what was that Spielberg movie, Super 8? Like kind of like that.
I'm curious. Okay, so why was it a 1 to begin with, and then now almost an 8? Like, what changed? Like, why was it 1? What made it a 1 at first, and then what really made it an 8?
Well, I didn't really think of it as more of like a Stranger Things kind of a vibe. I was thinking it was going to be a little bit more. I mean, I guess the best way to put it is kind of like a live-action Resistance kind of a thing. To where it was really going to be made for kids. It was really going to be, almost like those young Jedi adventure things that you see, whether it's the animated shows or the books or whatever. And not to say they're not good. They are. It's just not something that appeals to me. So a lot of times I tend to skip those. Like, there's a ton of young Jedi Adventures animated shows on Disney Plus right now. I haven't seen a single one.
Yeah, me either.
And a lot of what I do is I'll gauge like canonical content versus will I enjoy this? Because sometimes if there's enough canon information, I might watch it anyway just to get whatever the latest Star Wars canon is, or just to see, I guess, the next progression in the universe. But for a lot of those, it's kind of like it just isn't really worth it to me. And I sort of put Skeleton Crew on the same thing. And then, even if you look, like at first it just, I don't know, it just kind of seemed like an overly kiddie type show. Now, I will say this, when Jude Law was announced as the star of this thing, that was sort of the first warning shot across the bow. I'm like, well, okay, they actually have somebody who's a name actor, a good actor. I don't think he's going to attach himself to something that's stupid. So that was kind of the first thing. And then when I saw the vibe of it, like what happened in the trailer, I'm like, okay, this is actually going to be really cool. It's not what I thought it was. In fact, it's something very cool. Because, I mean, Stranger Things, that was another one, right? I didn't jump on board that show till like season 3 or 2, maybe, or 3. I think it was season 3, like in the middle of season 3. And everybody was talking about it, talking about how amazing it was. And Chris at work was one of the ones actually that sold me on it. I hear my cats in full vocalization mode back there. So if you guys hear any random meowing, it's just my little cat Rigby. He's still a kitten, still doesn't know when to shut up.
It's not me, guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's not some sort of weird, bizarre ringtone that anybody has. When I finally get that basement studio finish, maybe it'll isolate cat noises too. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Stranger Things, I was a little bit of a latecomer in, and as soon as I saw it, I was instantly hooked. Because that's another show that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And, again, amazing writing, production, execution, acting, directing, the whole shot, right? And it was something that was very cool. And when I saw the first trailer for Skeleton Crew, I very much got the same vibes off of that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see, now this one's a longer trailer, right? This is
Yeah, I
this
believe
is the
so.
second one.
I don't remember how long the first one was. I know this one's almost 2 minutes.
Okay.
So,
'Cause this show comes out December 3rd, so
mm-hmm.
we're right around the corner. So we're going to see a lot more content
Yep.
more likely from Disney about this. So
Well, that's a good point, too. I mean, we are less than a month away. I mean, really, we're like 3 weeks away or something.
Yeah.
3 or 4. All right, well, I guess without any further ado, we should probably roll this thing and risk the copyright strikes that we may or may not get from doing this, but I mean, hey, this was on YouTube. So I don't know why they always do this. Like, we'll get warnings or whatever, and it's like, guys, it's on YouTube. We're just reacting to it. Leave us alone. All right, let's roll this thing.
What are you in for? What are you in for?
This is a nice setup.
I found something buried in the woods.
Dad,
This is unacceptable. Do you understand?
what do you think it is?
Don't touch anything. What did you do?
We're lost. Really lost.
Stay together. We just need some directions home.
Come on, kid. Pay up. Whoa.
Where'd you two find an old Republic credit?
Do we know what era this takes place in?
Quick. I'll get you home. Partnership. We have to move fast.
I think this is post Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
Neil?
Yeah, maybe. It's hard to tell from...
A crew of murderous pirates is coming.
Something's wrong.
They're
Dang.
not going to just turn up. We need to find them.
We're not alone down here.
Be warned of booby traps
Yeah, they got the X-Wings going.
and mountains where none dare to go.
If you hear this, don't give up. No matter what.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, once again, this actually seems solid. I remember when the last trailer came out, you and I were talking about how one of the things that was really different, you brought this up actually, was you were like, okay, these kids can actually act. And that's something that,
Yeah.
we have not really seen in the Star Wars universe much.
Yeah, I mean, this if this is definitely one of those. It looks like a perfect merger between um, Star Wars and a yeah, like a Goonies type thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it does more so than Stranger Things. Obviously, there's, kind of the young cast thing, but yeah, kind of a Goonies, Star Wars meets Goonies kind of vibe.
No, basically, the premise of the show is like these kids, and this it kind of shows they're kind of out exploring something. I guess there are some troublesome kids, getting into stuff.
Hmm.
I guess they go on, like, hey, let's go out into the woods or something. They find this ship that they end up in, and then they accidentally turn it on, and it sends them out into outer space,
Right,
so
but
deep into outer space that now they can't get back home,
yep.
and now they're all out in the middle of nowhere, basically like, okay, what do we do? And then they run into, of course, Jude Law, who apparently seems to be a Jedi or some form of in the ranking of Jedi, whether he's a Padawan that just grew up or something like that. But he never got the rank of knight or master. So they're just kind of out there, and he's kind of trying to help guide them back home. And I guess they're kind of running into these pirates and things of that nature. So that's kind of what the premise is, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's basically it. And you don't get any stupid lines like, now this is pod racing, or,
Yeah.
oh,
Well,
let's
not
see
yet.
what happens if we do this. It's just like, oh my, really? All right, I'm not gonna go off on the prequels just yet. I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, I think you're right. I think basically this is pretty much exactly how you pointed out. And it seems like they actually run into a little bit of an adventure, seems like somebody's defending something. Um, Not really sure. Let's see. David said, finally, a Star Wars show starring Dumbo. Exactly what I wanted. I don't think there's enough information. What's the goal outside of getting back home? What's the mission? Well, hey, listen, don't forget that both the 1978 and the later Battlestar Galacticas and Star Trek Voyager, that essentially was the plot.
Hmm.
Crew is on a ship. The ship gets, thrown
Stuck
into,
it,
some like
deep
crazy,
space,
unknown
wormhole or something.
area, right? And pretty much the premise of the show is they're just trying to get home, and it's the adventures that they run into while they're trying to get home. So there's a lot of really successful shows, particularly sci-fi shows, that have borrowed that premise.
Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure that it's fair to necessarily criticize this show just based on that. Now, I would agree that still, I think maybe, and I think we're gonna find this out, because also, how many episodes is this thing? Do we know that? See if you can
I
find that out, because that's
think
gonna
it's
be,
10, but let me double check.
yeah, double check that, because if they try to, I think the only criticism that I would have is if they try to drag it out too long. But again, Jude Law's he's an Oscar nominated, if not Oscar winning actor. He's not going to join something or hook up with something that he doesn't at least believe in. So there is that. The other thing is that it basically does have a different sort of vibe. Like I agree with you. I think that they're perfectly blending the two influences together. I mean, oddly enough, even from the trailer, I think that this feels more like Star Wars than some really deep canon shows.
Just to kind of piggyback while I'm still looking for the information, it says the target audience for is a show about 14-year-old kids who get lost in the Star Wars galaxy, but it's not intended for just children. Um,
That was something Jude
so
Law
that's
had
good.
said in an interview too. He said that
Yeah.
this is, even though it's a kid focused show,
Centric.
it's not,
Yeah.
purely gonna appeal to kids.
Yeah. The show's creators were inspired by Steven Spielberg's films,
Mm-hmm.
which he says are stories about kids that happen to be about that. Let me try this again. Which he says are stories about kids that happen to be about kids.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, David gives a slightly erroneous thing. He says, yeah, but Star Trek had Professor Xavier, and these are Rugrats. But I'm not talking about Star Trek The Next Generation, David. I'm talking about Star
yeah.
Trek Voyager, which had Kate
And we're not.
Mulgrew as the first female captain in Star Trek. And, it had,
Oh, it's 8 episodes. All right.
Roberto... Oh, what's the guy's last name? He played the holographic doctor. He ended up actually in one of the Next Generation films. But yeah, we're not talking Next Generation. We're talking Voyager.
But aside from that, though, we're not even talking. I mean, that your gripe wasn't necessarily the acting. Your gripe was about the story. And that's what Eric was drawing the comparison to was Voyager, which was a very successful Star Trek show, is about the same premise where you get thrust into a whole different part of the galaxy, and you're trying to get your way. You're trying to find your way back. That was your initial gripe. Now, if you want to talk about the acting, then okay, of course, now even though, like you said, we're not talking about Patrick Stewart. That was Next Generation, but and quite frankly, all the Star Trek series had great, good actors.
Yeah.
And these kids, I mean, these kids have been in some stuff. I mean, if you look at their resume, I mean, they've been in some stuff. So before you prejudge them, you might want to like actually check out some of the stuff that they've actually been on, especially successful shows such as Stranger Things. Um, so that is that's something to consider. That's all I'm saying.
100%. Ronaldo joins us. He says, hey, everyone. Hey, Ronaldo. Glad you jumped on after we watched the trailer. I don't know. Maybe we'll run it again. I don't know. Let's see. I mean, so far, I'm detecting that we're still on. So that's probably good news. Oh, he saw it anyway. So he said, overall, the trailer was great. Really hope it's as good as it looks. Well, that's, I think, the big challenge of any of these Star Wars shows lately, right? Is that we get all hyped up because the trailer's fantastic. And then we watch the show and we're like, what is this? So I think that that's honestly a big problem. I think that that's a big issue. That's something that really the people at Lucasfilm should be looking at. Because if you think about it, there's a lot of hype around all of these shows. Like the hype around The Acolyte, for instance, was enormous. Now, of course, I think part of the problem with The Acolyte was that, forget about the writing and a lot of the problems the show actually had. I think it was the fact that the premise was something different from what was delivered, right? We were told it was going to be one thing, and it kind of was, but not really. And as it got closer, more information that Star Wars fans didn't like was revealed. And then, of course, when the thing came out, any goodwill was destroyed by like the second episode. And again, the trailers look promising to that show too. So you do have to be careful about getting too hyped up because of these trailers, because I mean, they could, I think episodes 1 and 2, I think they're going to do the usual thing where they debut the first 2 episodes and then, it comes out, right? So we'll have to see. We'll have to see basically what happens. Like everybody has said, it looks promising. It looks good. It looks like that we could get a lot of really good content from this. A lot of good canonical things, which is, again, anything that isn't focusing on the Skywalker saga that could take us a little bit beyond that, I think that's also a good thing. And that's something that I think a lot of people are missing too.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's one of those things where you have to, we're always asking, hey, Star Wars needs to take more risks. They need to move
Hmm.
beyond the Skywalker saga. These are things that we keep clamoring for, and we do have to give them space in order to do that. And I'm fine with them doing it. It's just as long as the execution is done properly, and that's where most of the problem. It's the concepts of things are cool. Like even the acolyte, like the concept of the acolyte is cool, but the execution was just poorly done. And I
Yeah.
think that's where where we are seeing a lot of the failure in this era of Star Wars is, you know, cool ideas on paper. It's just that can you actually execute them? It's no different than having a good play, but you don't have the players to execute it. And so if it fails, and it's like, oh, well, wow, that was a terrible play. No, it was a perfect play for it. It's just that you don't have the players to execute it so it will work. And that's that's the problem. For this particular show, um, like I said, it's 8 episodes. Um,
Which is standard for, it seems like 8
yeah,
seems to be the Disney Plus Star Wars show's sweet spot for live action.
yeah. So Jude Law says there's a lot in the world that they experience, contradictory and at times a nurture, at other times a place of threat, and that the series will be conveyed through the perspective of children. Law also concurred with Ford in agreeing that the series will also depict danger, calling upon the relationships between children and adults as a goofy relationship. And then other times it's really quite dark and quite scary. Um,
Like
he added
childhood.
that right, he and the young are in the confusion and jeopardy and challenge. With Skeleton Crew depicting them working together to overcome those fears. Favreau also wanted the series to convey many tones that reflect the storyteller of the filmmaker, which had been the he had used when working on The Mandalorian. So, uh, just some note can kind of take away from Skeleton Crew.
Well, and I think that, first of all, it would be great if he was like Chef from South Park and he came up, he was like, "Hello, children," every time, right? But I think, honestly, one of the things that is really cool about this is that it seems like it's going to explore different themes, right? Like it's not just going to be tonality wise, it's not just going to be one dimensional. That it is going to be sometimes a little bit silly, a little bit, whatever. It's going to be fun, but then it also is going to have dark moments. And I think that that's good because if we think about it, I mean, that is childhood, right? I mean,
Hmm.
that's pretty much what kids all experience. And I think that
Yeah.
if they convey that into this episode in this show, I think that that's going to help sell this thing a little bit because you have more of a multi-dimensional aspect to this, and this is where I think it's going to appeal to adults too. And again, I think the bottom line is, and you and I say this all the time, as long as you got good storytelling, and as long as the stories are good, and as long as it's well executed, I think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think what we can expect from this with this show is that yes, we're dealing with 14-year-old kids, and so you have to allow yourself give them the grace to be kids. They're going to do kid stuff. They're going to say kid things. Now some of it may be kind of goofy, some of it may be witty and quirky, but that's once again, like you said, that's childhood. They said this is a kind of a coming of age kind of story, so there's going to be, and we're going to see the first. I already know we're going to see the frustration from Jude Law because that's how any adult would feel like around 14-year-olds. It's like, I can't believe this is my life. I got to run around in the space with 4 kids that aren't mine. Like half of us don't even want to deal with the kids we do have, right?
Yeah, right.
So And I can understand like the frustration that he may have to, but then he also has to present a sense of calm because although they're probably going to be fighting against him, at the same time he's trying to protect them. He's trying to instill in them some things and teach them some lessons, and they're gonna, of course, disobey and get it because on the onset of it, it's like, oh, well, what are you in here for? We already know these kids are bad because they're already getting into crap. So this is one of those situations where it's like, I think they're going to have to learn that this world is scary, and sometimes you have to stay in a child's place. Sometimes you have to realize, hey, look, let the adults take care of some stuff because this world has a whole lot of stuff that we're not even ready for yet. I mean, they're running into pirates and all kind of crazy stuff. So I think I think there's why it's going to appeal to kids and adults because the adults can understand what that's like. Yeah, kid, that's what I've been trying to tell you all this time. And the kids are like, yeah, that's how I feel about my mom and my dad, or whatever
Right.
the case
It's
may
kind of like it's almost an allegory to how they're exploring their world,
be.
right?
Exactly.
But I mean, I think another thing that you have to look at too, which I think is equally compelling, is the fact that we've looked at the Star Wars universe through the eyes of droids, the eyes of heroes, the eyes of clones.
Clones.
Now we're seeing it through the eyes of kids, which is actually a unique perspective. We haven't really seen. You could say that Resistance, the animated show, was probably the closest thing.
Or Rebels.
Or Rebels. You could even say a little bit with Omega and the Bad Batch, right? I mean, but again, that's not the scope of the show, though. That's like one character that, maybe
True.
we're on their journey. This is firmly, it's like through their eyes. They're going on this adventure. They're the ones that are lost. They end up meeting Jude Law's character. There's like a lot of different elements, I think, that, that they could explore. All right, let me get to a few of these chats here. Darth Maul joins us. Always good to have Darth Maul with us. Soundtrack composer was announced today. Michael Giacchino. And do we know anything by him? By we, I mean you. I don't know. I mean, maybe I do. I don't know. I don't know of any of his other work. Maybe I do.
Rogue One.
Oh, well, there you go. Carry on.
Well, no, actually, it says Mick was revealed to compose the score for the series. His father, previously composed the score for Rogue One, as well as Watts Marvel's cinematic universe Spider-Man films.
Well, and that makes sense because we did see that in the trailer they referenced Spider-Man Long Way Home. So David comes back with, I know sometimes I troll y'all, but I'm not being petty. We know that. Am I the only one not impressed? It doesn't seem interesting in the slightest, but I truly want them to win. I'm not being biased because they're kids.
Well, what is it that you're looking for? Maybe that's the better question.
Yeah, because, I mean, and of course we know that you're not being petty. That's why we love having you around. You're like the cantankerous Star Wars viewer. It's awesome. I'm always amazed when you do like someone. When you come out and you say, you know what, I like this. I'm like, really? And so I'm trying to really figure out, like, where's that balance? What is it? But in a way, I don't know. This is kind of weird, but I almost draw some strange comfort in you not liking virtually anything.
He's the gem.
Right. Exactly. Like almost like a pessimistic approach to it, because what that does is it ends up generating really good. So it's good for our show.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how good it is for the overall enjoyment that you might have of the franchise, but I will say it's great for our show.
Yeah.
Darth Maul says he composed 2022 The Batman also, I believe. Oh, okay.
Don't say that to David now, because now he's going to go on that tirade.
No. Well, I like the music in it.
Well, if he did something for the Fast and Furious, then Dave would be on board. But
oh, well, there you go. So Ronaldo says the dialogue sounds good, like the way an actual kid would talk. Yes, I agree with that. He did a great job with the Batman. Yes.
Yeah.
Now you're right. That could send David off. I don't know, but this is a good point too that Ronaldo brings up, is that the dialogue is authentic. And that's something that we got even from the first trailer, right? That the dialogue seems, even between the adults, because a lot of times dialogue that's written for kids in movies seems forced. I don't know. It just, and half of the kids can't even really pull it off, right? So when you see a truly gifted child actor pulling off dialogue that wasn't just cheesily written for kids to say, it's great. Chef's kiss, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's like, and we've seen, so Jake Lloyd, for example, forced.
Completely.
Forced
And I'll even say that in Jingle All the Way. Like, I love the movie Jingle All the Way, but he just, I mean, look, I know the poor kid has just been, through it all. Yeah. But he's just not that good of an actor.
Yeah, and that's something that you just have to.
Like, look at Haley Joel Osment. Now, that's a child actor that can act. I mean, now he's like 30, but
right.
Well, he did like The Sixth Sense and a couple other movies during that time period. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of like kid actors, man, that are just amazing.
Now, speaking of kid actors, there's also another famous one that's going to be playing a role in Skeleton Crew, and that's Mr. Jaleel White, Mr. Steve Urkel himself.
Oh, yeah.
Now, granted, Steve Urkel's probably like 50 now, but
yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, but yes, former child actor. He got famous as a kid.
But he got famous as a child, playing Steve Urkel originally on Perfect Strangers, and then
that's right.
So he was younger even then when he was on that show, and then he spawned off to Family Matters, and that kind of launched his career. But that's the other thing about these kids is that they've also done some voice acting too for other for animation and cartoons. So that's another thing, is because they know how to use their voice. They're used to reading dialogue with inflection and knowing how to, because when your voice is the only thing that people really can get out of a character from you, they really have to make that prominent. So I think that, like, much like Ronaldo had said, that their dialogue and the way they deliver the lines, it sounds very authentic.
All right, well, it seems like
that's what we need.
Well, and it sounds like you're answering David's next question. He says, what did you see in the trailer that made you say, oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about? I know this is going to be good. Well, everything you just said. But I would also say, like, from a story perspective, right? Number one, it seems a little bit more grounded. Secondly, it does seem like the perfect marriage between a project like, say, Goonies or any of those Steven Spielberg type kids movies, E.T., Super 8, things like that, in the Star Wars universe without, like, forcing them. The storyline, classic sci-fi storyline. And yeah, the performances seemed authentic, not forced, not acted. The fact that Jude Law himself signed on to it is huge, because you have to understand, if you know anything about Jude Law, you also know that he's very picky about the projects to which he says yes. That's like a known Hollywood fact. Like, he's not one of these guys that's just going to sign up for something, or, it's like, you know what, I kind of want a boat for the summer. Oh, hey, this project will pay for that, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of really encouraging things about this. Also, the fact that you truly are looking at the Star Wars universe now through the eyes of kids. There's just a lot of really cool elements about this thing that at least promise. And again, I'm sure you probably feel the same way. We're not saying it's going to be great. We've learned our lesson there. Because there's been a lot of Star Wars projects that have had really great trailers. Or, to be fair, maybe they don't totally suck, like Ahsoka. Ahsoka's a great example. Ahsoka's a project that does not totally blow, but does not live up to what we saw in the trailer.
Yeah. And that's that's the problem with trailers a lot of times is because they can kind of sometimes convey, and like right now, what we're telling you about the trailer, since that's what you're specifically asking us, the dialogue, the way the set looks phenomenal. It doesn't look closed in. It looks like it's very spacious. Um, the costumes so far, from what I can tell, look good. So by and large, I mean, it looks good, like for what it's supposed to be, and we're judging on the merits of what it's supposed to be. Now, if the story isn't interesting enough for you, then that's one thing. I get that. But if we're judging it based on the merits of what the show is supposed to be, then yeah, it looks good. Now, will it continue? Like when we see it, once again, it all boils down to the execution of it. We can see a couple of these things in the trailer, and it's like, oh, okay, they pieced the trailer together nice, but the actual episodes, it could run completely different. It's just like, okay, this is lagging, the pacing sucks, or why did they make that edit there? Or we don't know who we're supposed to follow at this point. Like if they start making those type of decisions like we saw in Acolyte, then yeah, the show will suck. But we don't know that yet. But based upon the what we've been presented in the trailer looks good.
Well, not only that, but there's also other things, right? Like maybe the first half is amazing and the second half falls apart, or maybe the season finale is unsatisfying. I mean, there's a lot that can go
Yeah.
wrong in a series,
Oh,
and especially a
100%.
limited series. Because if it's something
Mhm.
like that's 22 episodes, you expect there to be filler episodes. I mean, that's a given, right? I mean, just look at
Mhm.
24. Like, what was that one? Was it season 2 where they showed like Kim Bauer just running through the woods for like 20 minutes or something stupid?
Uh,
And they kept
Stupid.
going back to that?
What was it? Mount Lion or something? That was
Yeah, it was something, or a bear or something that was chasing her. I think you're right. I think it was a mountain lion or something. But I mean, it was just like, really? Or even in the Clone Wars, because remember, the Clone Wars is like 20 some episodes. How, hey,
Mhm.
look, here's a 3-episode story arc about the droids trying to find their way home. Now, that's another use of that story trope, too.
Yep.
But it was just, every time I see that, I'm like, really? Like, it wasn't a bad story. It's just that it went on too long.
Especially when you had other episodes that were around
Yes.
that was going on that you
Right.
really want to get back to, and you
Right.
keep spending your time. Like we don't care about this. We want to get back to the main thing.
Yeah, like Anakin, Obi-Wan, this like main story, they leave it off on a cliffhanger and it's, oh, look, we're going to follow these droids who are lost on a planet for 3 episodes. Right. If it wasn't framed in the Clone Wars, you'd probably be okay with it. Because I actually like the original droid series that was like the late 70s, early 80s, somewhere around there. I mean, sure, the animation was fairly crude, but the storylines actually weren't bad. It was a little silly at times, but that's what you would
That's what they're
expect
there
from a
for.
Saturday morning
Yeah.
cartoon show, right? It wasn't like the serious animation. Back then we could call them cartoons,
Yeah.
right? Now it's like it's an animated series. All right. So Darth Maul says, forgot to mention this, but Michael Giacchino was also announced to compose the soundtrack for the 2025 MCU Fantastic Four movie. Seems to be set in the 1960s. That should be interesting.
Mhm.
I really hope, by the way, not to digress too much, but I hope that this Fantastic Four movie is actually really good. Like I have to admit, I enjoyed the other ones. Not the one that came out a few years ago, but like the original ones, where I think Ryan Reynolds is Human Torch and Jessica Alba,
Ryan
I
Reynolds
think.
or Chris Evans.
Was it Chris? Yeah, maybe it was Chris Evans. I knew one of
Yeah.
them was like somebody that did. Oh, that's right. Ryan Reynolds was Green Lantern. That's what it was.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like those, like the early ones. But I really hope that this one is good. Ronaldo says, if it'll be 8 episodes long, do you think that's enough?
Depends on the story they tell and how
Mhm.
long the season, and then how long each episodes are. That's another thing. I don't. Let me see if I can find that. They have
Oh
that
yeah, the
information.
episode length. Well, and again,
Yeah.
I mean, this is another thing that I hate about a lot of these Star Wars shows, right? Is the fact that they keep, like, one episode will be like 18 minutes and the other one will be like 45. I mean, it's not even consistent. It just seems, I mean, look, especially if you're going to release them week to week. If you're going to just drop all the episodes at once, fine. Because essentially you're just watching like a, 6-hour movie anyway. But if you're going to release this as a weekly series, don't make me wait a week and then I sit down, I'm invested, I go to watch this thing and it's 17 minutes. What's the point?
Right.
And now I got to wait another week? If you're going to do it, make it. That's what we mentioned actually yesterday on yesterday's pre-recorded show. We said, look, Cobra Kai had it right. Every episode was roughly 30 minutes. Sure, like the towards the end of the season, especially the season finale, you might get like a 45-minute episode. But generally speaking, you're talking like somewhere between like 27 and 32 minutes. So did you find anything on this? If you're still looking, I got more chats.
Go ahead. Yeah,
let me get some more of these chats. Ronaldo says, I think it is as long as they tell the complete story. Exactly. The Penguin had the same amount of episodes and it was amazing. Yeah, it's not about episode length or even, how many episodes they're going to have in a season. Because really what you're trying to do is you're trying to just say, look, here is the story. Now I'm going to cut it up. It's like if you have a really delicious pie, it really doesn't matter how many pieces you cut the thing up in. It's going to be good. But what Star Wars has a tendency to do is they'll have like some giant piece followed by like a little sliver and everything else. So the pie becomes unsatisfying for that reason. So I think that they need to be a little bit more deliberate in their episode lengths, but then don't wear out your welcome. Don't create more episodes or less episodes that are needed to tell the whole story. David.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, let me get this one. David says, Jude Law is awesome. So they definitely had that going for them. Jude Law doesn't lack gravitas, and the scene with the robot fighting was cool. All right, see that? You're coming around.
So they say that approximately the runtime is 43 minutes.
Per episode?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, all right. See, now how do we get... that kind of sets me off in a way, though. How do you get a story about a bunch of kids being lost, and that's 43 minutes, but something like The Mandalorian, which has a way meatier story, at least canon-wise, that gets like a 15-minute episode? Or like 20-minute episodes?
Hey, maybe this is what they learned from. Oh, wait. You know what? See what happened.
Oh, so I guess... we're going to find out in a month.
Yeah. But there's also an NCIS Skeleton Crew episode, and it's 43 minutes. So maybe they're thinking of that.
I think they're thinking of that.
Yeah.
I honestly, with this series, I do not see it having 43-minute episodes. I could be wrong, though, because, look, I don't doubt that maybe there might be an episode or two that are 40-some minutes. If I were a betting man, I'm going to guess like 20 to 25 minutes. Maybe 30. But I'm going to go closer to 20, 25. Because here's another thing that irritates me about the Star Wars shows. First, you have the whole like little intro, right? They'll do the whole like... They'll have like the little Star Wars logo thing come up. Then they'll do a recap. Then they'll have like this like little credit sequence. So the actual show doesn't start until like 5 minutes in. Then you think, oh, cool. All right. Well, 30-minute episode. All right. I got 25 minutes to go. No, you don't. Because the show will actually end at like 18 or 20 minutes. And then you have 5 minutes of, like credits. So really, it's not even whatever they actually post. It's not even that. You got to figure a good 10 minutes of the runtime is dedicated to, let's just say, not the show itself. I don't know.
No, but I completely agree. And I think you're going to probably around the 20, 22 minutes, maybe 30.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be
But
more than 30 per episode. Because if it's, let's just say it's 30. Let's just say it's 30 on the nose. And again, really that's 20 when you factor in everything else. But even if you take it at face value and say, okay, 30-minute episode, that's basically like a 4-hour movie. I could see that, depending on what they get into. Because, first of all, we have to figure out what era this even takes place. You're probably
Return of
right.
the Jedi.
Yeah, I was going to say, the presence of the X-Wings, the fact that, they seem a little comfortable flying them, means there's no Empire to threaten them. So, it does definitely seem that way. So, okay, post-Return of the Jedi. But we don't know how many years, though, right? I mean, does it actually say? Like,
Between return, no, it doesn't say how many years, but it's in this and real retirement Mandalorian.
yeah, that's probably what it is. It's probably around the time of the Mandalorian and all that. That seems to be where a lot of this stuff is landing lately. So, if that's the case, then there's enough going on in the galaxy too that they could find themselves into all kinds of different adventures. And the thing is,
100%.
if Jude Law is
Especially
actually
with the
a
pirate
Jedi,
thing.
yeah, with the pirate thing. But we also have to see if Jude Law is an actual Jedi, Padawan, whatever, because if he is, it's like, okay, does Luke know about him? Because anytime you do anything post Return of the Jedi and you're going to feature Jedi, you're going to have the Luke Skywalker problem.
Well, yeah, apparently he's a Force user. But see, in their defense in this situation, though, depending how far out from the known galaxy they're in, Luke may not even, be aware of him.
I don't know, man. He basically sensed Grogu and was on it.
Yeah, but that's because he was on that Force amplifier stone too.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That is a good point. So that was right. That was amplifying it a bit. And I mean, depending on, and they wanted to be found too. So there was that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we'll see. But Luke's sensitivity in the Force is pretty, I mean, he feels the ripples. So
yeah, and
if anybody's
Grogu,
using the Force,
his species is pretty powerful as it is anyway.
Yep.
So then now you amplifying that too. So
right, but I'm just saying that Luke is powerful enough by that point in time that any ripple in the Force he's going to feel. And if he's trying to rebuild the Order, he's going to want to locate anybody that has any Force abilities, if for no other reason to make sure they're not dark side guys.
Mm-hmm.
After the Emperor and Vader, he's probably a little sensitive to that. It's kind of like, you know what? I'm sensing a Force user. Yeah, guess what? I'm checking it out. I'm not going to leave that to chance.
And that might be like another finale type thing where he pops up.
That's true.
Now Luke becomes the Nick Fury of the Star Wars galaxy, where he's at the end of every.
Right, but actually, but you know what? That makes sense.
I'm starting a team. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That would make sense.
I was joking, but I'm kind of serious.
Absolutely, that 100% makes sense. I mean, I didn't really think about it, but you're right. I mean, that is a total Nick Fury kind of Marvel thing, but again, that would actually make perfect sense given the story arc that happens post Return of the Jedi with Luke, with the Jedi, with all that stuff, and just the nature of the beast. And it would make perfect sense, and it would be a good idea. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Again, I don't necessarily think that they have to shoehorn the Jedi and the Sith into every Star Wars project, but the reality is the Force users light or dark, permeate the entire galaxy, whether people like it or not. That's why they even pop up to a very minimal amount in Andor. And Andor's largely free of that, but, you can't not reference it at least.
All right.
All right, well, I guess we're just going to have to, wait and see. Obviously, if there's anything else that pops up, if they release another trailer, we may react to it or we may just talk about it. But I do think, though, that we are on the right track with this thing. I think that so far, the 2 trailers that we've seen show a lot of promise. Definitely a reason to get excited. Obviously, you got to temper that given the track record of the previous Disney Plus Star Wars live action shows, but I don't know. I got to say, I went from not caring about this project at all, and I mean up until a few months ago, because it wasn't until the first trailer dropped and I saw it, and I'm like, all right, I actually kind of, not only do I care about this now, I'm kind of excited to see it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's quite a 180 for me. All right, before we wrap this thing, David's got another comment. He says, it's actually a question. Are you concerned about continuity issues with timeline? Well, it could be a problem if they're jamming everything up into this one little tiny area. However, the nice thing about the Star Wars universe, particularly because they're dealing with different groups of people, is it's you have a wide berth. There's a lot of leeway that you have as far as continuity goes. This is a problem that the expanded universe happened, and I mentioned this before, when they came up with the whole Yuuzhan Vong thing and wrote literally 22 novels. And they essentially just changed the entire landscape of the Star Wars galaxy to the point that if you're a writer that's writing material after that came out, and again, this was released over a period of a few years, but you basically either had to write your material to take place before the Yuuzhan Vong invasion, or you had to try to make sense of what happened afterwards. And what happened afterwards got really convoluted. So if Disney hadn't bought Lucasfilm and they didn't scrap the expanded universe, they were going to have to do something to overhaul it. So as long as they don't do anything that I would say is like some galaxy-wide thing that really makes it difficult to weave individual stories in between some of these events, as long as they keep it broad, I don't think you're going to run into too many continuity issues.
Yeah, this depends. As long as you know the space in which you're in, and realize, hey, okay, this is our sandbox. What's going on before it, what went on after it, and you just gotta stay there and just understand your lane
and understand the Star Wars franchise too. That's a problem. You don't come in with just like a casual knowledge and start Ryan Johnsoning the thing.
But I also think because you have Filoni and Favreau too around, still guiding the show too, I don't think they'll run into that problem.
No, that's true. I was wondering because you don't really hear much about Pablo Hidalgo anymore. So I was wondering, what state the story group is in. But Filoni basically is where the buck stops, so to speak. And the story group apparently is fully intact. So they exist primarily to prevent continuity issues. But again, the more time that you spend in a particular time period, you do run that risk. If you keep just like every project, guess what? It's taking place, 3 months after season 2 of The Mandalorian or something. If you do that, yes, you run the risk. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you do run the risk. So we'll have to see. But as always, look, when this show comes out, obviously it'll probably be the Monday show. We'll review it. We'll do a review on this one.
Yeah, so they're dropping the first 2 episodes, of course,
Mm-hmm.
on December 3rd. So,
Yeah, what day is that?
December 3rd.
Yeah.
That is. Let me check my schedule here.
I know I should know, actually, with all the events and stuff that I have to do that are being scheduled, but I should.
That is a Tuesday.
Tuesday. No, of course. Like the day after we do I guess we'll do like a Skeleton Crew Eve show or something where we'll, maybe talk about things that we expect or looking forward to or whatever. Okay, so it drops on Tuesday. And yeah, it'll be like the following Sunday before we actually review it. Well, even the following Monday. Wow. You know what? Maybe we'll just do the show on Tuesday instead of Monday.
Okay.
I mean, we got to give ourselves time to. Well, you come over here anyway. Maybe what you do is you just come over, we watch it together, and then go live and review it.
Here we go.
We could try to do something like that. We'll see how the schedules line up. Oh, I'm not going to be able to do that. That's right. I got a job that night.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, yeah, you'll just have to wait. You'll just have to wait until like that. Maybe we'll do the reviews on Sundays because, it's Tuesday and like every YouTuber in the world, as usual, will get the jump on. Yeah. Like by the time we get our review out, they're already going to be talking about what they expect for the next episode or whatever. We're always behind on that. But, look, if we were pre-recording these shows, we could do it easily. But because it's live and, we go live on certain days, it was great when the shows dropped on Friday because then you just wait 2 days and boom, we got the review. So, I don't know. But either way, the reviews will be up. We'll be able to chat about it. We'll talk about it. Anything else comes up on this thing, obviously, if it's major or whatever, we'll do a show around it. But just watch for coming up in a few weeks. We still don't know what we're going to do yet, but of course we do have our annual pre-Thanksgiving Wednesday night live show that we always do. So usually we have Dave Cossey with us. We'll see if he's able to do it again this year. But otherwise, yeah, business as usual. We should be back live this Sunday. So hopefully, you guys check us out then. And of course, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Of course, you guys already know this, but just in case you need that little extra encouragement, go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and then, because sometimes our schedule does get a little bit weird, hit the notification bell so you always know when we're going live. And also watch for some new YouTube shorts I'm going to do. We were doing a character profile that was all text-based or whatever. I'm going to actually get on and start doing some live action, non-text, right? Some new character profiles that are a little bit more sarcastic in tone that I think you guys will appreciate. So check that out. When you see the YouTube short, it'll be on TikTok too, so share that. It'll really help us out. And until Sunday, I guess that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Let us know in the comments section what you guys thought of the Skeleton Crew trailer and if you're excited about the show. And I'll probably put a poll up just to gauge everybody's reaction and, whether or not you're looking forward to this or not. All right, so with that, I'm Eric Vansel.
I'm Darryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.